Hi, my name is Andrew Kuykendall from Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa, Florida. I'm an associate member in the Department of Malignant Hematology. Really excited to review the data that came out from the Rally MF study. So this is a study that's looking at an agent called DISC-0974 in patients with myelofibrosis and anemia. So really interesting study. So first off, I'd say the DISC-0974 is what we call an anti-hemojuvelin antibody. So it's actually targeting this protein hemojuvelin, which is actually associated with this SMAD signaling pathway. And in turn, what this antibody does, it actually downregulates hepcidin and frees up iron for red blood cell production. So this is really important because we know that myelofibrosis is an inflammatory disease, and oftentimes you actually upregulate hepcidin, you limit iron availability, and therefore we know that anemia is something that comes along with this disease. Virtually everyone with myelofibrosis at some point during the disease process will be anemic. Oftentimes that requires transfusions, and it's something that our current JAK inhibitors really haven't been able to significantly address. And so this clinical trial is actually very well designed in the sense that it kind of separates anemic patients into three different cohorts. One, it's looking at patients that are non-transfusion dependent but anemic. Then it looks at patients that are, requiring some transfusions, so-called TD low, and then others that have more high transfusion requirements. And it looks at those endpoints separately because those are different patient populations, and probably our goals in terms of what we're trying to accomplish in terms of anemia are slightly different there. So what we saw on this study so far, while most of the enrollment so far has been in the non-transfusion dependent cohort, we've seen really nice response rates, upwards of 50% in terms of being able to improve a hemoglobin of 1.5 grams on a sustained basis. So an average hemoglobin increase of 1.5 grams over a 12-week period. In the TD low and TD high cohorts, the endpoint is more looking at transfusion independence over a 12-week or 16-week period. Here, we have fewer patients that are enrolled, but we again see response rates upwards of 50%, which I think is very encouraging for being able to meaningfully impact that need for transfusions as well as anemia overall. I think one critical aspect of this trial is the fact that it's incorporating a lot of patient-reported outcomes into this. And I think this is something that's really important. I think we all agree that making someone transfusion independent when they're requiring consistent transfusions has clinical value. I think that part is clear. However, it's a little bit less clear what the value is of making someone's hemoglobin go from 8 to 9.5 or 9 to 10.5 or something like that. And so here, I think it's very important to show that patient-reported outcomes are conveying that patients are actually feeling better, less fatigue, less symptoms, right? Better ability to participate in things. And so here, what we've seen nicely is a signal that those patient-reported outcomes tend to improve along with those hemoglobin increases. And I think that's going to be a really vital story as this trial continues to accrue.